This week, we begin National Vocations Awareness Week. And our gospel this morning is perfect for us to begin reflecting on our own vocations and the need to pray for vocations. A vocation is something that we're called to, and not something that we have a right to. I had no more of a right to be ordained than any of you have or had a right to your own vocations. We don't have a right or obligation to receive gifts, or else they wouldn't be a gift. The vocation that God has called us to is a gift, and therefore we're obligated to nothing. All we can do is pray for an open heart to receive the gift that God has given us. My whole childhood and teenage years, I didn't want to be a priest. I actually resisted the vocation I felt God calling me to. I was rejecting His gift, this precious gift of priesthood that I now work very hard to protect. I wanted to be married and to work in theater. My will was very different from God's will. And it wasn't until I started living my way that I saw and realized how unhappy and how unfulfilled my life was. And that's when I started thinking, maybe if I try things God's way, my life will be better. And it certainly is. In our gospel, Jesus is calling us to humility. Jesus is reminding us that no one is greater than God. And once we realize that we're not God, then we can start to see that we're all in this together. Humility isn't just realizing how privileged one may or may not be. Humility is knowing yourself and knowing that we need others to make it into heaven. Humility is realizing that my will is not the most important thing. Rather, God's will is the most important thing that will bring us true joy and happiness. So how do we begin to practice humility so that we can both listen to and discern God's will? For me, because I was in theater, there was a huge shortage of humility. Humble actor should be an oxymoron, like jumbo shrimp. But it was through receiving the sacraments and reading the scripture that began to open my heart and mind to understand and practice humility, to the point of realizing that my will isn't as important as God's will. When I would receive the sacrament of reconciliation, that was always and still is a reminder of how wounded I am. Coming to Mass on Sunday and seeing other people go to the Eucharist as medicine reminded me of how much I needed healing. Reading the scriptures, like today's gospel, taught me in a concrete way what humility looks like. Once I began taking the sacraments and sacred scriptures seriously, my heart was opened and I began to change. Now, believe you me, I still have a lot of work to do. I'm no saint yet, but I'm working on it. I fall and I sin every day. Believe me, I'm the biggest sinner in this church this morning, but I keep trying. I don't let my weaknesses get in the way. Instead, I try my best to use my weaknesses in a way that makes me stronger, so that I don't keep falling. Most importantly, I don't try any of this alone. I have my close friends, both priests and non-priests, who hold me accountable. I have my prayer life that keeps me in check. I have my spiritual director who helps me out. The first step to humility is knowing that we can't do anything alone. We need each other. It's through our growth in humility that we come to better understand God's will for our life. Once we realize that we need God and His guidance, we will be able to see more clearly the vocation God is calling us to. It may be the capital V vocation to holy matrimony or holy orders, or it may be those smaller V vocations, like working in a soup kitchen, volunteering at an animal shelter, donating food or money, or simply by helping your neighbor rake their leaves, or hopefully not soon enough, shovel their snow. We can hear God better once we get ourselves out of our minds and start focusing on others. That is humility. And that is what Christ is calling all of us to. And so please join me this week in praying for an increase in vocations to holy matrimony, priesthood, religious life and consecrated life, and the holy single life. We need to start helping each other and our young people humble ourselves and discern God's will.